Good afternoon, Bill.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Bill Lowe, Mariposa County movie producer, storyteller extraordinaire. We've had a few conversations on a subject of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to hear on camera repeat some of the comments that you've made.
Uh-oh. Well, go ahead and refresh my memory on any of that.
Well, we had a celebration of gay rights, and there's been other events around the community that have, I think, drastically changed the image to people outside the community, and even some inside this community, as to who we are. We are more accepting of diverse opinions, lifestyles.
Well, I think that I think there's been all kinds of people here in this town, and time changes, and we like some people like to think, well, this is a very conservative town. It is a conservative town, but conservatives are not necessarily bigots or anything like that. And same thing with you got conservatives and liberals, and then you got ultra and ultra. People who are in the middle, liberals and conservatives, are really open-minded people. People who are to the far right or to the far left are not. In fact, they're almost together. There's, the thing about freedom of speech is you have people who, when I went to college, I remember getting a tour of the college, and they go, well, that's the free speech area, but you only have free speech as long as they agree with you. And that's the problem is there's people on the fringes who will claim they're liberals or even claim they're conservatives, and they don't want you to say what you have to say. I mean, we all know those people. We all know when we try to have a decent conversation with certain people, they get on their political world, and I hate it. I hate listening to them. For instance, when we lost 8 to 12 soldiers there in Afghanistan, and this lady just went off on whose fault it was, and I said, I'm sorry, but we're not talking about Bush. We're not talking about Obama. We're talking about right now. We're talking about right now that these guys lost their lives. That's what we're talking about now. And it's just all political. Well, you don't want to hear my political views. I go, I don't want to hear your political views, because you're missing the point. You don't care about those boys. It's all about politics to you. Those boys lost their lives, and you're busy talking politics. And I hate people like that, because they don't care about those boys. They're nothing to them. It's all about the blame game and all about politics. And that's why I hate dealing with a lot of people who, it's just like, you can't make sense. And of course, people say, well, those Trumpsters. Well, you got also people on the other side too, no matter what. And people say we're more divided than ever before. I don't think so. I think most people are in the middle, and most people are not divided. The news media loves to divide, and of course you got your cable channels, Fox, and you got your MSNBC. They want to see division because it brings ratings in. That's what it's all about. Remember, Fox is owned by some Australians. They might be American citizens, but they're Australians first. So they don't care, and MSNBC, who owns that? Comcast, I guess, now owns that. You look at a lot of these channels that are on cable, they're owned by AT&T. Ultra-conservative channels are owned by AT&T, your phone company. They also own CNN. They also own HBO. They own Warner Brothers. So you got to understand, it's all about money, and the more there's division, then that brings money in, because you get that niche. You get that niche of people in, and that's what it's all about. And they don't care. It's just like going back to Hearst. He didn't care, he started the Spanish-American War? Was that the war he started? He didn't care that all these boys lost their lives. They're nothing, and that's what bothers me, is boys are losing their lives because of politics and all. By the way, I'm working on this thing about the Pueblo.
Just perspective.
Right.
You're registered as a
Independent.
independent. We've talked about some issues,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're, from a political perspective, you're more conservative than I am.
At times I am. But it all depends on what, over here I'm liberal, over here or there. I believe in people's rights. I don't like the idea of abortion, but I don't believe that men, especially ugly old men, especially those ugly pieces of crap there in Supreme Court, have the right to take away women's rights. And that is really dangerous. I know people are going to get upset, but they've just reversed another Supreme Court. And if you think that that's okay, in 20 years, there's going to be a liberal court and they're going to reverse it. And you're not going to like that. This is not good what they've done. And they say, well, this is not going to happen again. Well, already, what's his name? Thomas wants to reverse all this other stuff. Well, what if they reversed a lot of the things, black rights? What if they start taking away black rights and all? There's all these things where, there was cities, in the 50s, blacks were not allowed to spend the night in Palm Springs. Did you know that in 1950s, 40s and 50s, that Jack Benny would perform there in Palm Springs, and he in Rochester would have to spend the night outside the city limits because he was Jewish, and his co-actor was black. In my neighborhood, Lakewood Country Club, I didn't know this. I was right adjacent to it. That until the 60s, Jews were not allowed to buy a house in the Lakewood Country Club. So we're talking about in the 60s, all the way into the 60s, segregation, all the stuff, and that can be all reversed by a certain Supreme Court if they had their way. They'll, and this is the whole problem here. You got groups who now say, well, Judeo-Christian values. Those are the same groups that in the 60s would never put the word Judeo at the head of that. And so it's kind of amazing hearing these groups. And this is why our fathers of this country, who were not perfect, some of them owned slaves, had separation of church. If you had, and that's the important thing, to have separation of church, or else one group. We've already had a problem here where some members of a church wanted to control a debate here in this town. Not all the members, but some of them. And it's an embarrassment to this church that it got out of hand, because they wanted some of the people wanted them to sign these papers saying that you have these so-called family values. And family values are important, but there's an hypocrisy here. And when you talk about family values and then you are talking about those people, but you're failing to look at yourself. Christianity has to do with yourself. Stop judging other people. What are you doing? Who are you? What are you like? Okay, so the thing about diversity is that it's important that people be allowed to share their ideas, and when people shut you down, then let's just say you claim to be a liberal, and you shut down people because you don't agree with their thoughts. Well, that's not being a true liberal. And same thing with true conservative. Now you have your ultras left and ultra right. They don't believe in diversity. They only want their ideas. And I think that is what bothers me and scares me most in this community. And it's important that we, in the Constitution, has separated church and state. That's important that we keep that. As I've mentioned about the the thing about the Supreme Court and all, they were very coy when they got into their office. They said that, said certain things that to say that they were going to be open-minded about Roe versus Wade and all that. And then look what they've done. They actually committed a sin. They actually lied when they were in the hearings. And it's important that we understand this, that they turned over something that the Supreme Court had stated. Well, in 30 years, another Supreme Court can come over and turn that over or turn something else over. It is important that what they've done there is very dangerous. And in the future of our country, it's very dangerous when they've done that. And so we got to be real careful. And I guess that's...
Pay attention.
We got to pay attention, and we got to understand that, there's certain... I don't know. It's very scary for me. Now, I'm 69, but I worry about the kids, what they're going to see. And as this country gets older and all, you got little factions. But the thing is, we got to understand the most people are in the center. We got to stop the people on the fringes telling us what to do. They don't represent me, and they shouldn't be representing you. And we got to be involved and make sure that people who we get elected, whether it's on the school board or whatever, are our values completely. We're talking about in the middle. Because if they're all the way over here or over there, that's not good for the kids. That's not good for the future. And there's organizations that are trying to subvert everywhere. And this is not good for our community, and it's not good for freedom. And that's what this is all about. And if you are complacent, then guess what? You lose. You lose.
Bill, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I always appreciate your viewpoints and perspectives, and I hope we can talk again.
Great. Well, thank you. Have a good day.